You can see if you can all hear us from up here. Otherwise, we'll try to turn on the mics and project that way. But can everybody hear me? Even everybody in the back without a mic? Or do you think I need a microphone? All right, I think they're working on it. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Joe is going to head up this meeting. Joe Merriman is with Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And this meeting is required for the Paragon to be able to get their geophysical permit. And Joe will explain to you the purpose of the meeting and the action that we're evaluating or that he's evaluating with Wildlife and Fisheries. And then, we'll kind of explain operations, but we'll try to get this mic working before he starts.
Should work.
Does it work now? The problem is to get.
Yeah, I guess I'll try to be as loud as I can. In order to have my power line, I can't go to the mic. Y'all can't hear me, just holler at me and I'll try to speak a little loud. So I'm Joe Merriman with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. And so we require a public meeting for the seismic part of this job. So we don't have anything to do with the CCS. It's strictly for the seismic part of this job. So their requirement is to have a public meeting before they actually get started and try to answer any questions in regards to the seismic. I'll kind of go through the actual history of what we do and kind of explain to that and answer any seismic questions that y'all might have. So according to RS 5630, each seismic exploration crew working in the state of Louisiana shall always be under the supervision of the seismic section. Since the 50s, Wildlife and Fisheries have designated how seismic exploration shall be conducted as it relates to fish, seafood, aquatic life, oysters, wildlife, and water bodies of the state. Our main goal is protection of threatened and endangered species and critical habitats from the effects of seismic exploration. And natural heritage review is performed on each job that's done in the state. So what we'll do is we have a database, and we'll get the outline of the job and put it in our database. And any species of concern, we provide that information to the seismic company to minimize any impacts at all. It's not given to the public. It's just strictly to the seismic company. Something that could possibly be out here. It could be RCW habitat, water bird colonies, eagle nests. There's a few different things that might pop up on the heritage review when we do the heritage. So we require them to have a public meeting and run the paper for 30 days before they can actually even get a permit. And then we'll review everything after the meeting tonight, and then we'll issue the permit if we feel everything's good to go. We have seismic inspectors that monitor the rules and regs of Title 76. That's periodically on the job from the start to the beginning. Each crew working in the state is required to submit a weekly report showing the work that's done on the job each week. They provide a report to us each week of what's being done from the beginning to the end. All right, I'll kind of go through what the actual seismic part is, of what they're going to actually be doing out here as far as the seismic part. So what is seismic? Seismic is a method of geophysical exploration that uses sound waves from an energy source to determine information about the subsurface formation. So they're looking, for the seismic part, they're looking to get an idea of what's under the ground, kind of like a sonogram. So they're just looking, they're setting sources off and reading it to see what they think is down below the surface. And they use sources to actually to get this information. And so what will be called a virus. It's a type of source, maybe using the water as air guns. Dynamite is used on a lot of jobs, but I don't think there's no dynamite on the job, correct?
No explosive sources, just fiber size on existing roads and.
So there's no dynamite that actually be used on the job. So the first step on the seismic company's job, so they'll permit each individual landowner to get a permit before they'll actually go on your property. And once they get a permit, they'll start with surveying. So they'll go out and survey it, map in the roads and all that information before they actually go out. I have drilling and hole plugging here. They won't be drilling any holes and hole plugging any holes in this job. It'll be the dynamite. So we'll skip over that, and they'll lay out receiver lines, which is what we have here. So this will be sitting on each individual receiver line, and I'll let the seismic company kind of go through exactly how they're going to do that. But this will be marked with Paragon, and everything that comes out will be marked with Paragon, so that when they leave, it's their responsibility to get it out. And so they'll go down those lines with the vibrator truck, and then they'll record. These will record the information they're getting at each individual line. So if you look at this map here, so one of those lines is running north south, one kind of running east west. One will be the receiver lines, and one will be the shot point lines. So you'll have one of these at each individual spot on those little dots there, and then this is not a true picture of this one because they're not going to actually have shot points. So they're just taking the truck down the roads that they can get on. So it's really not going to look like this. It's going to be kind of scattered where they have roads, and then they'll shake at each individual point where they stop along there. So I'm going to skip through the hole plugging. The hole plugging, we require them to plug the holes if they're using dynamite in our specifications. So I'll go through it just because since we're here, but they will not be drilling any holes with heavy equipment to put dynamite in. So once they drill the hole, they put the charge in, and then they have to plug the hole at 15 to 17 feet from the surface, and add bentonite after that, and then a top plug on top, and then spread the cuttings once they do it. So that's for the hole plugging if they were going to put dynamite in the holes out here. I'm just kind of skipping over that because we're not actually doing any plugging the holes. So the receiver line, this is what is called the receiver, which is the important to put out here.
Can everybody see that? It's very, very small and it's not connected with anything. It sits at a receiver station like this by itself, and it communicates by signal with the other receivers and back to their recording to create an image. So it's a very small footprint on the ground. That's what's going to be out there along with receiver lines.
And once they finish doing the vibrator in the trucks, they're going to remove all the equipment and remove all. They're going to have to flag it out here also. It will be marked with their name, so they're responsible to get all that out for me. All right. So if you see that this map, this is an outline of the job. The eastern portion is along the eastern side on West Bay Wildlife Area, which is not owned by our department. So we do not own that WMA. Is where a lot of it is taking place, and you'll see the lines. If you look at these, this is what's called 2D lines. So they'll do their shot points and the receivers all on this individual line. Where the whole other part was called 3D side. So it'd be like that map we saw earlier. Some lines run east-west, will have receivers all in the shot points we run in different directions.
Give us some landmarks.
All right, Jane, you want to? So this is 112 is the north. Highway 112 running on the northern part of the job, and then this is 26 running right through here, which is the southern part. And this right here is the managed area. This area here.
Where's Whiskey Cheddar and Cox here?
Probably not on that.
Yeah, it's not going to be on here.
I have a map with a topo background up here. If you guys want to walk up later and take a look at it. Whiskey Cheddar is to the west
Oh, that's right.
of the project area, right along here. And I'm going to pull this map up when Joe is done with his presentation. I'll put it on that monitor, and I can zoom in to any areas that you guys would like me to zoom into. And this one will show exactly where the source lines are on the roads and trails. I have this one on my computer. And it'll show you the planned receiver lines as well, and we can talk about that and we can put that in.
Do we have to let them go across our lane?
They have to have a permit through you in order to go across.
But we have to let them go across our lane?
That's up to you, and you have to.
Who issues the permit for them to come on our land?
So landlord.
They won't access any property for which they haven't obtained a permit from the surface owner.
So if you refuse to permit us,
They can't come onto your property. That's correct. But, I think that you guys,
but they can still inject those.
I'm under the seismic aspect, and I don't know how that permitting works.
I'll kind of let Tandy go through the more of the seismic part of it, and then and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Go to your computer.
Yeah, so again, I have that PDF pulled up, and I also have a video that kind of shows you guys what operations look like on the ground and the types of equipment they use, the UTVs that they would access the receiver lines with, and the vibra-size trucks that will be on the roads and trails.
And all of that will actually be done by hands. Walking. Is that correct?
So they're going to utilize UTVs where they're permitted to. If the surface owner permits access by UTVs, and if it requires walking, then it would be walking.
Is there a reason why y'all don't want to pump it in the Gulf?
So, can I just ask that the CO2 questions be refrained until the end of the seismic meeting? And then there are representatives from OXY here that will stay afterwards and address any questions that you guys have related to that. There also is a dedicated website that they can point you to that has additional information about carbon sequestration. So they'll talk about that after this meeting is done. But if we can just kind of hold those questions until we're done with the seismic meeting, I really appreciate that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if we'll come to that after your seismic piece. If they finish theirs up, we'll hang around as long as you're me.
All right, let's see what I've got here. Let me back out of this. Okay, so like Joe said, we've got the whole project area, and there's a large copy map up here if you guys want to go and look at landmarks after the meeting. But I can just kind of zoom in here to show you that. So
the gist of the program is 15 miles north-south and about 4.5 wide.
Yeah. So if you can, and I know you guys in the back can't see the screen, but there are all of these orange points are the source points. Those are where the fiber-sized buggies will be traveling, and you can see that they correspond with roads and trails. They're not just straight lines. They've all been planned for areas that are they're either roads or existing trails or two tracks to minimize impact. And then all of the pink points are receiver points. And so at each one of those points, this is what would be on the ground. So there are lots of gaps between the lines, as you can see. And as we discussed, they're required to get a surface permit to access any of the properties for which they're going to place these receivers or go off-road with a fiber-sized vehicle on a trail. So if you have not been contacted by the permit group, it might be because they don't need to access your property. There is this is a large area, so on a map it looks like these are really close together, but there's lots of space between the lines. So there is a potential that even though your property is located in this project area, they don't need to access your property. And if that's the case, you're not going to be contacted for a permit, if that makes sense. So the first phase is permitting, which they're working on right now, and I imagine several of you have been contacted. And then after permitting, they would come out and survey the lines, not the live lines on the roads. Those don't need to be marked. They have a GPS system in the vibrator buggies that allows them to know where they're supposed to stop and shake for each of their points. But the pink receiver lines would be marked on the ground. And are you guys going to be using flagging or lath or what? Both?
Flagging.
Flagging. So each of the points would be flagged on the ground. And then after they're flagged, the recording crew would come in on foot or with UTVs where access permission has been granted. And they would place these units in the ground, and they just stamp them into the ground up to the bottom right here. And this is what you see on the surface of your property. So it's a very minimal impact operation associated with the seismic aspect of things. And what's enough? Are you laying out the whole spread, or are you laying out?
Half of it, 30-some square miles at a time.
Okay, so they will lay out receivers in 30 square miles of the project area at a time before they start recording anything. And once enough receivers are laid out, they're going to come through with the vibrator buggies and vibrate along the roads and the trails at each of those points. And as they vibrate, all of these units pick up those vibrations and they communicate with each other and they send them back to a recording truck, which is stationed somewhere in the project area. And there's equipment in there that receives these images. And then once everything is completed, the images are processed to give them a really good picture of what the subsurface formations looks like. And then they interpret that data and they can see, what the formations are below the ground. It's kind of a rolling operation. So as they finish in a certain area, they will take the receivers from, like say they start north-south.
Yep.
They're starting north to south. So they'll lay out, 30 square miles on the north. And then as they complete portions up here, they'll pick up these receivers and roll them over to the bottom. So it's kind of like a leapfrog operation. So they're going to go from north to south. They're going to move them over as they complete them. And everything is picked up when they leave, so there won't be anything, left on your property. They clean up, pick up all their equipment, clean up any trash that hopefully didn't fly out of anybody's UTV. But there won't be anything left on the ground. When they're gone, everything will be cleaned up, and there won't be anything out there on the property. There's no permanent access created as part of this seismic operation. It's very minimal impact on the ground. And again, they have to obtain surface permission from any landowner whose property they're going to access. So I have a video that Paragon has just as general information on their website. It kind of shows you what that operation looks like, and I'm going to play that for you guys. It's kind of, I think it's Wyoming sagebrush habitat, so it's more open than the habitat we have around here, but it gives you an idea of how their operation progresses. Every morning they start with a daily tailgate safety meeting. They talk about any issues that the crews need to be aware of, like the threatened and endangered species issues that Joe may come up with, any areas that need to be avoided. They talk about where there are no permit areas. They talk about hazards. So it starts out with a safety meeting, and then they get out there and progress in that manner. So it'll be laying out receivers first, progressing with the vibrator trucks, and then picking up that equipment and constantly rolling over it until they're all the way done.
So the area is 4 miles wide. You said,
Roughly 4.5, yeah.
and how long?
15 north to south.
What is the
Yes, sir.
time frame for around Highway 26?
26 is the south one, right? I'll be right at the end. So our whole operation, I estimate from survey to the end, 4 to 5 months with weather, right? The recording crew, when it's all set up, we get rolling, we could be done in 2 months. So it would be the latter part to get down to 26.
I have a business, that's why parking lot where they're trying to do this, so that's why I kind of know that.
Yeah, so that's June, July, probably late July.
You know, they won't have people working on that property the whole time. They'll only be on certain pieces for that four months where they'll only be on your property a day or so.
Yeah.
They're only meet twice. They're going to lay out their equipment one day, and then they're going to come back one day and pick it up. So their presence will really only be 2 days, spaced maybe 4 weeks apart.
Yeah, 4 or 5 weeks.
Right. So they're not going to have a constant presence on your property. It's just going to be to lay out the equipment and to pick it up. Because again, with this operation, all the viricides work in energy source is on existing roads. So those receivers go in the ground, and they won't pick them up until they're done with your area. So this will be what you have for that duration of time on your property. Just the road.
I got a question. The vibrator that y'all talking about, how's it going to harm water wells? Because there's a lot of water wells in this area.
In our contract, we have offset guidelines.
I'm not asking you all that. I'm asking you, how does it affect water wells?
It won't, because we don't go close to them. We stay quite a ways away. We do tests and make sure we don't go anywhere near building structures, pipelines, houses, anything. We stay away.
Nearly every house has a water wheel.
Well, they do vibration testing that lets them know how fast the particle movement is, and it gives them their offsets for the project to have protections for various different types of structures. So they're like industry standard offsets, but then they also do project-specific tests to make sure that they don't want to damage anything that you have no more than you want them to damage it, because then it results in damage assessments for these guys. So they do all that testing up front to determine what the appropriate offset is for those.
One more question. Is this funded by the Great New Green Deal?
I don't know what I deal with the geophysical permit, so maybe that's a question for the after meeting. And I don't know what the funding source is, but there are folks here that can talk to you about that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How deep are they?
How deep are you guys looking, imaging?
So Paragon is a contractor hired to provide the seismic data, right? The geophysicists, geologists from OXY. So our listening is quite extensive. So we can listen all the way down to 13,000 feet. Their objective for whatever they're doing, that's their side of it. So it's quite the long listening time image we're supplying.
So you'll go down as deep as 13,000 feet.
Yeah, with the listening time here, we got a long listening time. So they'll have a lot of data way down. What they do with it, that's their side of it, right?
Can I ask a question? How
Yeah.
much acreage is this involving?
Just under 70 square miles,
So how many acres?
70 times 640.
56,000.
56,000 acres?
Now, how are those parameters determined? Because you're awful tall and not real wide. Explain why how that area was chosen, so to speak. You know, common sense would tell me if you've got an interest in the ground right here, that you would explore things in all directions. But this thing is way taller north and south and east and west. And I want to understand how that came to be, that area came to be, or what determined that. It wasn't just stroking up, was it? No.
Yeah, I think this is Doug Conquest from OXY. And that's probably getting into the bit that's outside of these guys. So the way we decided the storage, the sequestration area, is really looking for a piece of land that has good subsurface geology to be able to safely store that CO2. And then these guys, they come along, they're looking to get more detail about that area. So their size, their scope they look at is based on the piece of property or the area where that CO2 could be stored.
So it looks like they would have done the seismic before y'all decided where y'all want to put this at. So why is the car ahead of the horses?
It's not. I mean, there's seismic before this as well, and there's a whole range of different techniques to determine where's good.
Okay, so what don't make sense to me is you had to have a permit to do seismic, and this was never said before. So now there's a permit to do the seismic, so y'all can do what y'all want to do. It just don't make sense.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to hang around to answer all your questions after they get through their bit. So.
You might be, they could possibly be looking at old seismic data. So it might be 20 years old and it's seismic here. And I don't know that. They could be looking at old data, and now they have to get more precise data for the areas they want.
Basically, if you see the cavern on the old data, then you put more emphasis on that spot. It's more viable for you to test that area because you have a past history of a test. I'm looking at this young fellow right here. Am I right?
That's reasonable. But cavern,
Well, my point is where you're going to put it.
Yes,
Put it
but you are.
Okay, I have a question to ask. So if you get permission from somebody to go on their property to shoot this right here, right? Are you at that point getting a lease on that property? Or my question is, if I walk right here and this young lady owns this property and she gives me permission to do seismics on this right here, do I have access to that seismic report when it's done? As a landowner? And if so, is it before or after I would lease property to? So in other words, if there's something down there before you have lease options on it, does the landowner have the right to say,
There's something.
don't mean to confuse you on the actual facts, but
You mean like if someone were to find?
I don't know, act like a ship's down there. My point is,
So,
I'm being very
if they wanted to lease your property, you would have to give them permission.
honest. I'm gonna act.
You would
I'm
have
saying,
No, I'm saying they couldn't lease it if you didn't give them permission.
here's the deal.
If 2 or 3 people decide not to do it, it's all shot.
Hold on a minute, Doug. Hold on. I'm gonna ask it again. If I give you permission to do seismic right here, right, at that point, am I leasing you the property?
No,
Okay. So once your seismic is done, do I have access to that report? Yes or no?
That's not Paragon's problem.
Well, who owns it? Somebody.
Data belongs to Oxy.
Do we have access to it?
Hey, Mike, you in it?
No? It's a yes or no. You know right now if I have access
I
to
think
it.
he's looking for the person who can answer that.
That's fine.
That's
Pretty important because people want to know what you're seeing on their property before they lease it to you.
I think
Because hell, the ark might be down there. I'm just saying. I'm being very, very honest because if you're going to be transparent, if we're going to be, hold on, y'all. Hold on, man. Let me finish. If you're going to be transparent, point A to point B, be transparent. Make it easy on these people that don't have a clue what you're fixing to do. Don't have a clue how your pipeline runs. don't have a true what your downpipe is made out of. Chrome, what is it made out of? You know, there's a lot of questions that the community wants to know, and it's not there. I think the police jury should be asking more questions in the open. That's going to come later because I want to know how each one of these guys feel. But my point is, I like that question.
The seismic report would be for the whole of the property, so it has a lot of proprietary information that is for.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I can't see your hearing. But the seismic report would be for the whole of the property, and it's not that we would parse it out to.
The answer is no.
It's a full, complete image of the whole project area.
And when the whole image is done, everybody that agreed to let you on the property, do they have access to the report?
She's saying no.
Okay,
because
that's
there
what we
would
need to
be
know.
too much
We know there's a
proprietary.
no in there. All right, thank you, that's all.
Where's the land guy?
Hey,
Would you-
Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just because I want to answer his question, please. So the question he's asking, the gentleman down here, is that once they do, if you're a landowner, tell me if I get this wrong, please. If a landowner allows access for seismic, that obviously that's not the CO2 sequestration lease. That was the first part. Yeah. The second piece was, I think what you're asking is,
Do they have access to the report?
He wants to know if they see
If
the
they
data.
can have the report given to them that you did. In other words, what's your seismic show? Do they have a right to that?
Traditionally, in seismic sheets, the data is not given out because it's a whole area, it's not specific.
I agree with you. So if 10 people did it, they was in the whole area, 10 people get the report.
No.
Okay.
Normally nobody gets.
If they requested it from you, do they get the report?
Not normally.
So the answer is no.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's just, and we can move on.
Yeah.
Okay, no. All right, go ahead, babe. I'm done.
We never know what y'all found out.
Why?
You never know what.
You own it, that's why.
What was found underneath the ground.
It's their
Or if
property.
there's
They got a right to it.
anything there.
It's that simple.
I
Man
totally
worked for
agree
his
with
whole
you.
life. He bought that land. That's his land. He got a right to know what's on the land. If he's gonna let you do it, it's not rocket science, guys. I mean, we're gonna go in layman's terms for everybody here. I'm just asking, it's a yes or no. You told me no. We can move on.
Yes,
Has our parish approved this seismic work on our roads in this area? Has the police jury given them permission to come in here and do this work?
No, we're reviewing the permit application for the road access. So I've got
So
some.
our police jury's gonna have a say-so in this.
I wouldn't say the jury votes whether or not they go on the roads. It's really a case of engineering. Is it going to damage our roadways? It'd be like us blocking access from loggers or any other kind of commerce. We got to take a look at it. And
So
see.
you gotta give them permission to let them go on our roads.
That's right.
I think we the people need to vote on that.
That's what we do, right?
We don't give a permit.
We the people have the voice here. I think we should be able to vote.
I got a question.
yes, sir.
Why are we having a meeting about permitting and seismic grassroots before we've ever had a meeting on what they want to do? We're fixing to let them spend millions of dollars on seismic grassroots property, and then if we decide that we don't want it, then it's too late. They got a court case to fight. So if it's up to us and our property, why are we even letting them start this before we have any information on what they intend to do?
That goes to the police jury that should be finding this out for you, not them. The people that's trying to do the job, I don't agree with it, but they got a job to do, right? My point is the police jury should be finding this information out for us and have all this. They should be able to tell you by now, is it chrome that's going down in the hole? Where there's a reason for that. What's the pipeline made of? What's the redundancy on the pipeline? How far are the emergency shutoff valves? How many PMs can the parish get the PMs? There's a lot into this on the safety factor that the parish has not asked one question.
So,
And that needs to be answered. Oh, and that would make it easy. You guys could make it real easy if the information was given to the police jury, but they're not asking you all of it. Because I don't think some of them know. And I'm not being mean. At the end of the day, it's been going on. How long have we been doing this? 3 years? 2 years? I mean, how long has it been going? And there's still no answer. I can ask you questions right now that ain't been asked to you.
It came out of Baton Rouge, just to defend the juries a little bit. This came out of Baton Rouge to the President of the United States of America. It came from the top down. So
And that's what we're up against. And I agree with you that all these things need to be decided. These people feel like they can just come in here on our land and do whatever they want because they pass eminent domain in Baton Rouge, our legislature.
But that's not these people. These people, that's their job. I agree with you.
It's not
100%. I agree, buddy.
I'm saying.
I'm not going to villainize these people because they're just making my point is the parish should have the answer for the people in the parish. These guys shouldn't be having to answer questions out. They should have the answer to the parish.
Well, look,
and it's a lot that needs to be done.
Here's the thing. Since 2020, it's been taken away from the local government authority.
We can't hear you, Roland.
Since 2020, the local government authority has been taken away. So since 2020 to now, we've become closer to, we already got a 5-class well in West Bay. And there's 2 more wells potentially going to be on the south end of 26, on north of the Indian Reservation, and one out here somewhere around LeBlanc. Here's what this police jury had. Let me say this. I believe, first of all, we have to do everything we can. What we've been doing. When I got on this police jury back at the beginning of last year, I went to talking to the police jury about the risk, about what we need to do about the risk. Listen, the police jury ain't had no say. The police jury has asked questions, but they had no say. This police jury put together a resolution and sent to the governor, the legislature, sent to the Natural Resource Department, asking them not to give a Class 6 permit until our local government had more understanding of what's going on and where our people had more say. And then we created the Louisiana CO2 Alliance to give the people a voice, just what we're doing today. Let me say this. We have worked hard to make sure that we can get some bills passed on safety, mitigation, liabilities changed, and we're asking for a bill that there be a criminal charge if there's a leak in these wells and that it ain't shut down immediately, and that the local government and the state is notified. Now, these are the things that we've been talking with the companies and with the legislators about, because this police jury has been trying to address this. But please understand, this police jury's authority has been taken away. But ever since then, we've been working. Doug Conquest, the guy with Oxy, didn't have to be here tonight with this team. Because really, this meeting was about the wildlife and fisheries and the company that's doing the side dive. Doug and them didn't have to be here, but I've been talking to Doug for on and off for a long time at this thing. They come here because we wanted to try to give the people an opportunity to ask questions. Doug and them to give answers at what phase they in, what's next, what to expect. We've been talking about dangerous CO2 pipelines. And Doug put his team together, called his team together the other day and was having them to reassess what they're going to do with these pipelines. These discussions have been going on. The police jury, the companies, and the legislatures. But let me tell you the facts is, we have no real say. We have no authority. And Doug and them really didn't have to be here tonight. Now, we having a risk assessment. Now, this police jury has been doing a lot. This police jury has spent around $60-something thousand to get a risk assessment done by geologists and scientists. Because we wanted to make sure it wasn't what Roland Hollis said or anybody else. We wanted real geologists and scientists to do that risk assessment. It's going to be here this Wednesday. In March or sometime, we're going to have a public hearing to go over this risk assessment. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update because I want this crowd to ask questions. I want you to voice your opinion. Listen, we've been forced to assume risks that we really don't want. That's the facts. Yeah. But it's here. And the chances of it getting stopped is like going to Mars. But I'm just saying this, there is a small possibility. If people come together, we can force safety. People ought to be able to vote on this. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I do believe that we can force all these issues up front. The companies and the legislators and the police juries of Jeff Davis, Vernon, and Vernon Parish, Beauregard, have been working with these companies and these legislators on getting some very important bids. You know, so listen, ask questions, seek answers. I don't blame you for being upset. I didn't run because I wanted to, because I knew it was more risk involved in these things than what was being said. And you know what? Our parishes were going to get zero money. So, you know, I'm not about the money, but if we're going to be forced to assume risk, we need to be paid like we're saving the world. But anyway, we're working on this. So, anyway.
That's your state legislature and your state congressman and your state senator that you need to call. In 2020, they did this behind our back for this very reason. None of us knew anything about it. Most didn't know anything about it, and they're the ones that everybody needs to be calling. They did this behind our back. They knew they were doing it for this, and they did it behind our back. And the police jurors are the only ones that have stood up and helped us with this. They are the only ones. We thank you, Roland, for that.
I'm not mad at Roland. Me and Roland just got off the phone earlier. I'm working with Roland on this. That's not the point. And I know Roland, where he's at around that TV. Me and Roland got off the phone about an hour ago. So it's not an attack on the police bureau. I want you to take it. My point is, and I'm trying to get it across, is by now we should know the aspects of the pipeline, the down pipe, what's it made out of, which is should be chrome. And what's the I know we're getting off your stuff, but we're here now. You know, what is the safety features, the PMs that's done, who's the reports turning in, can it get turned into the parish, so on and so forth, to where you make the parish, the people of the parish comfortable with it, instead of just, we put it there, figure it out. A lot of people don't understand instrumentation, valve, the way a valve strokes, how a valve operates, pressure, how much pressure between the two valves. That's a lot of information that people need to know. And then you educate, it makes it go a whole lot easier. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But it's so much better to educate people and make them feel comfortable about what's going on next to their house. That's the point I'm making. Me and Roland are friendly and Tony. I'm not attacking them. I'm saying we should know these answers. That's my point.
My congressman asked for me to send him all the safety issues that I had, and so I did. So if y'all call your congressman, call your senator, and let them know your concerns, they're starting to hear about it. They were looked into the whole thing. They don't know. Most of them don't know anything about carbon capture. So once you start telling about the safety problems and the risk and the fact that there's been the monitors, they don't notify anyone when they go off. The community's never been notified for any leak that we can find. So it's very dangerous. Get with your senator and get with your congressman. Stay.
So,
yeah,
I was going to ask
I don't
you
want
about.
to hijack their part, but I think you've got some good questions there. So I want to just kind of set it in where we're at. And we're still at, it probably feels like it's been going on for a long time, but we're actually at a very early stage in terms of the project. So all that detail is still part of we're still assessing the subsurface. Is this the right place to do it? And then there's a bunch of things have to happen together. So this is a business. So this business only works if you capture carbon dioxide, CO2 from somewhere, from an industrial plant, capture it, compress it, put it in a pipeline, transport it to the storage, the sequestration location. And then the person who captures it gets a fee for that from the government. And then they make a deal with the pipeline company and the storage company, and they pay what they agree.
I know the whole process.
Yeah.
I just was talking about the people that don't.
That's
what I'm
trying to.
You're right.
I'm trying to explain how the whole thing works. Those commercial agreements, they're all still being worked. We don't know if there's even a business. I'm just being honest, financially, whether this makes sense and whether we're even going to be able to build a business. So it's way early on. Like when and if we get to that point, that's when we don't know today. Is it going to be 1 ton of CO2 or 100? No, we don't know because we don't have those agreements made. When those agreements are in place, then that detail comes.
My question, when? Half of what it was saying.
So he was just saying that, and I was going to speak to that. It's very early on in the planning stage for these guys. They don't know exactly where the pipeline's going to be. They don't know how big it's going to be. They don't know yet what the pipe is going to be like. The seismic portion of this project is one of the key components in their planning stage because it images the subsurface formations to let them know if there's even a possibility of store carbon in this area. So a lot of the details that you're asking for are not yet worked out, and these guys are still planning. Essentially, this is all part of the planning and preparation. Yes, sir.
Sir, can you say what companies are looking to use your storage area if you weren't storing here?
We're talking to, I can't say specifics because it's private, commercial discussions, but all the industrial emitters within, several miles of here where we can get CO2 here. So anybody that's emitting CO2 in a big quantity that's relatively close and we can make the economics work, we're probably talking.
So what is y'all's projected start date drilling or whatever? What a month, year, 2 months?
No, so we don't even have a permit so the permits, I'm sure some people know, to drill a well for injection of CO2, you have to have something called a Class 6 permit. And there's been hardly any issue. So that's a state controlled process. So we don't even have that permit.
Okay, after you get the permit, from the time you get the permit to the time you start, what's the time?
It's probably going to be
roughly.
Yeah. Again, it depends on commercial, whether you actually have a business. But 3 years is probably about right.
So it'll be 3 years before y'all start pumping.
The permit is possible this year, right? It could
the permit. Yeah. The permit
for the Class 6.
For the Class 6 permit, it's possible this year, but in Louisiana State hasn't issued any so far.
So once you get the permit, it's roughly 3 years before y'all start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still got a lot of questions though about offshore. You got how many wells out there already abandoned that y'all could be pumping down them wells? Are y'all even looking?
Yeah, we've looked at it because there's advantages from obviously it's out there. There's one
that's a lot closer to all the plants down there to go offshore than it is coming up here. And that's my question. Are y'all afraid to kill the fish out there? You get a bigger fine than killing the humans here.
I think the completely.
I know fish are more important than we are.
Yeah.
Well, how can it be stopped? How can this be stopped? I think that's what most of the people are here for. To stop this.
The only way that this can be stopped, this is the only way. The legislature.
So our local authorities in here, wherever they are, how can they vote or go to the governor or whoever?
Well, there's stop. Mr. Jones, there's some representatives from Vernon Parish that's going to be pushing an opt-out. For parishes to be able to vote up or down. They're going to be pushing that bill, but we'll get out of the committee in that route. We don't know. There's so much money and so much stuff in options. But at least there's two
There's a lot of money involved.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But there is two legislators from Vernon Parish that is going to be pushing opt-out.
This is an out parish.
Yes, sir.
We need help finding in a bunch of other parishes. I understand that.
Yeah.
I believe everybody's in here wanting this thing to stop.
Yeah.
Many domains that took over when everybody's in COVID. Stay home. Don't go to work. Stay home.
Well,
and whenever something's going down in the ground, and like I forget who back here, someone did that red line there, that red line right there. That's as far as it's gonna go. That's as far as this stuff's gonna travel. It's not gonna go no further than there.
Well,
and I don't believe that. I think that's a bunch of lies. But I know what that little deal is going to be for. They put in the top of the ground. I heard that 4 times. I want to know what's going to go in the ground. How far? 10 miles this way, 20 miles this way, 20 miles that way. And they have earthquakes up below Shreveport where they frack. Okay, what's causing that? They already
already determined that's fracking. You gotta pump that sand down in the ground. 10 times greater than the bottom hole pressure. What are they gonna pump this in? How much pressure? It ain't gonna bring it. You can't frack nothing here. Fracking does not work here. Because it does. Fracking does not work down here in Southwest Louisiana. Fracking will not work. They're trying to put a speed in the ground. Would make the frack cause water comes in.
Yes, sir.
Where is it gonna go?
Mr. Jones?
Where is it gonna go?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna go anywhere. That little thing right there, that little orange thing they put in the ground, she's done told us that's the rule.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr.
Yeah,
Jones, the thing is this, the only ones that can stop this is the legislature and the government. I mean, that's really the way I got but
We can't stop.
Well, y'all can't stop it.
It's up to.
It's up to us.
We can stop.
that's what That's what the lieutenant seals the lines was designed for police juries to give the people opportunity to have a force service by doing it. Because when we go to Baton Rouge, it matters how many grassroots people behind our lines to help push bills and that. I'm just trying. I don't want to give nobody no false hope. I'm just trying to tell it.
Well, we've done got all also. It's here.
Well, it's the truth.
You said it was here. 2 or 3's gonna say it's here. Can't stop it. Why are we getting all that?
Well, just like you said, we was last to hear about it, so it all started back in 2000.
No, we're the last to hear.
People don't own their public.
We're the last to hear. No, we went to family. No. Oh, I know
Okay,
that.
so
I know the two.
This guy right here.
I know that. I believe you. I've done talked to
He's
him 4 or 5 times.
tremendous.
I talked to him. Mark to Joe. I talked to them too. I know that.
Our police jury took the lead. And then the update.
And I'm not saying anything about it. I'm talking about everybody else.
We need to repeal, this eminent domain. Carbon capture is not eminent domain, okay? That's the bottom line here, folks. If we're using our tax dollars to pay for this, you need to contact your legislatures and tell them that carbon capture injection is not eminent domain. That is not a public road. That's not a public right of way. It's the private companies making billions of dollars. And ask them how much their CEO makes a year. You know what I'm saying, guys? This is the people who, with our tax dollars, subsidize. And we need to tell Baton Rouge, for the sake of my grandchildren and y'all's grandchildren, we're not standing for this foolishness anymore when it comes to managing our money.
It's not right. And it's not constitutional.
It's not right.
They can't do it. And we get nothing out of it except danger. It's not constitutional.
Roland,
Who's being bought off?
No, I'm just saying we need to tell our elected officials that no, y'all.
They don't want to work. Our public servants working their dollars. They know it's been out there. They know how to work.
Hey, listen up.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. One at a time. Mr. Gill.
My question is you talking about, I understand, our representatives represent us, Highland Parish. What is the 5 police jury gets on their thoughts? I'm looking around, I don't see the people who represent us in Baton Rouge here, and I wonder why.
Where's Steve?
He's in Baton Rouge.
Oh,
He's there. I talked to him. He went to Baton Rouge. I'm just saying he is in Baton Rouge.
Look, here's the thing. So when the risk assessment gets here, y'all, we're gonna have a public hearing on the risk assessment. We're gonna have the companies, we're gonna try to have Exxon and Oxy. We're gonna have the risk assessment firm. We're gonna have the impact study, the financial impact study done. And we're gonna all come and go to the civic center. We're gonna try to get as many people to come so they can be informed and listen to the risk assessment. But understand this legal time. The reason there's a lot of people here because people is just really finding out about this stuff and concerned about it. But this meeting tonight was called by the wildlife fisheries because this is part of their permitting process. Joe to be able to tell y'all where they at with the process. Also, we have been talking about the pipelines, what needs to be done if those pipelines come through here. Putting monitors and having, notification that there is a leak, notification going out to all people's phones, knowing which way the wind, all these kind of stuff we've been talking behind the scenes. Now, this is part of the permit process, what they do. But around in March, we're gonna have that public hearing, and everybody can come and have this concern, and you can speak and be heard. Tonight is a sample of what we've done. I feel like that we knew what really the people felt right. This is a real sample. But this meeting is mainly for the seismic and for the, what else?
Our meeting's for the seismic, which is pre-phase.
Yeah, right. Are y'all complete?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask it, just so that we can wrap up the seismic component of it. We're not shutting down your questions. Oxy's here to answer your questions. But I guess, does anybody have any additional questions about the seismic aspect of operations? Yes, sir.
I've got a specific question about the seismic thing. Okay. I think what a lot of people are concerned about is that if we understand the seismic part and that the people agree with the seismic thing, is that the company that Oxy construes that we are one step towards supporting this? I think.
So the seismic permit that you would sign to allow them access to your property is only specific to their seismic operation. They would have to come to you in the future if they want to seek any other surface access permissions, any other, anything, pipelines, facilities, anything like that. They would have to come back to you through a separate permit process to permit those activities. And you as the landowner have the right to negotiate terms with them, to say yes, to say no. The permits that they're seeking from you guys now and the project that we're talking about for the seismic is only specific to the seismic action. It doesn't carry on to any of their other actions. So if you grant them access to your property, it doesn't give them access later for anything else.
Nobody grants you any, nobody grants, the right of way to go on their property, then how you gonna get your seismic?
So, they have already obtained, yeah.
First off, let's understand that the seismic is a part of the process to ensure this is not safe. Yeah. And that's important. And allowing the seismic doesn't mean that the rest of this goes forward. Like they explained, there's this early on in the phase, but consider maybe going to the doctor and getting an MRI and finding out that you have something wrong with it. I mean, if that is a comparison, this is part of the process to ensure that this is safely done. And the seismic is non-impact for the most part. You're going to have a little bit of equipment on your property for a very short period of time, and it's done and done with. And anything else that happens after that is a whole separate process. But this can also turn the other way, and the seismic indicates this is maybe not the area. So by allowing the seismic, you're not committing to anything other than allowing the seismic.
So who determined that this procedure, this type of seismic procedure is the best instead of 3D or some other kind?
Well, this is 3D.
So it's 4D, but the fourth component is time. Because if they do move forward with any type of carbon sequestration project, they would have to do monitoring to make sure that anything is staying where it is in a formation. So the 4D component of this is time. This is essentially a 3D seismic operation that will, if a project moves forward, be conducted in subsequent years over time as a monitoring. So the fourth component of the operation is time. It's no different than any other 3D seismic survey for oil and gas that is going on people's property. The action on the surface is the same. The image that they're getting of the subsurface is the same, but the 4D aspect is the component of time.
And the public gets to look at the 4D side of it?
No, that is proprietary to the company.
But the public jury, does the public jury look at it?
No, we can't do it. If you're, Why can't we look
I
at
don't
it?
know if you've ever.
How are we gonna know
I don't know if you've ever seen a seismic. I have, but if you're not a geophysicist, or geologist, or have the software to interpret the data, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you gotta put that, yeah.
And the
So
other,
we can put it all together where it means something.
Yeah.
so
So
the
what I
other
think,
part of that is like they can't give you the whole picture because the rest of that belongs to other people in this room and all your neighbors. And if they took a slice of that picture,
But it would take it off.
it wouldn't give you. It would
You
just
gotta
give
take it
you-
off. You gotta take it off. I understand that.
But it wouldn't be a
It's
meaningful.
gotta be a couple miles wide, right? For it to mean anything. We can't get that. Why?
So, they're asking for a permit.
Can you hold on a second? The gentleman in the back has his hand up for a while.
The seismic permit doesn't give OXY rights to sequester. It's strictly a short seismic, which has been done forever in the past. So it's just the permit they're asking for and they're doing today is strictly a surface set for a finite amount of time. And it lays out what the Paragon folks can do, and it's just a short seismic.
Yes.
If and when sequestration happens, that would be a separate agreement that's negotiated on an individual basis.
My question was, whenever they come to me for this permit, they said it was gonna be done by helicopter, and that it was one of many times that they were gonna do the seismic deal over my property. And each time they would pay me a set amount. How many times are we talking about this? Because my land is a business, and I can't interrupt my business.
The only surveys that will actually be on your property are the two we're talking to here.
And the time component, that's not something they know in advance either. That's something that has to be, I guess, worked out as part of the process in any type of monitoring efforts and what they deem, is sufficient for ensuring safety and all the other components of their operation.
yeah, I mean, just
What happens if a few years they wanna come in there and silent grab the hole? Can we drill wells there?
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Can they still put all wells in for y'all inject?
So he's saying, can they still explore for their mineral rights if you come in with a carbon sequestration project at some point? Like, would they still be able to?
Yeah, it depends where it is. I mean, that's part of the deal.
Devalue the property.
Yeah.
It's taking away your mineral rights. You've got no right. Here, they run that carbon line to low chemical. And we didn't know why. They put a mile down on each side. They went south. Very good. If you got nothing, they get well below, above. They got nothing. So they devalue the property.
Yeah, well, that's got to be built into the lease agreement for the CO2, right?
Well, one of the things that we talked with the chairman of the Natural Resources Department was that they know that there's gonna be like 6,000 feet of potential blockage, potential drilling in Parish in this area, okay? But one of the things that we was talking to them about was this: there has to be something done to accommodate for those losses if it never can be drilled again. Rick Guyman said they were working on something. Now, I don't know what,
I noticed they do in most of them on their seismograph in the bay. But, oil, somewhere it's got oil, it don't just go in the bay, it goes out of the bay, under other people's land. So if we can't get it on our land, if they're not seismographing, we're not gonna get nothing. We're not gonna get no money out of it, we're just gonna be at a loss, because we can't do it.
Mostly what they gonna pay is at the inspection side, whoever it's on.
Rusty, you still got a question?
Yeah, I was curious as to, then we just having this hearing about this seismograph. When did the lease of the land start? But we just having the hearing now. They've been out there trying to lease land, and we ain't even had the hearing about the seismograph work.
So you're just obtaining surface reflection.
The actual, the actual permitting for the seismic was really only been underway for about a month because we had a 2-week gap in there for the holiday.
But y'all been out trying to lease land already.
I don't have anything to do with that. This is open.
I mean, other one comment was, we've been back and forth about who has the right to look at the seismograph.
And they understood that, I don't know what they did.
The bathroom.
The answer to him was, no, you can't look at it. But then a while ago, they said, well, it's your neighbor's property and everything else. And then I'm kind of confused. Parish can't see it because it's the neighbor's property and everybody else's. But that man couldn't see a copy of what was on his.
It's got to be about 4 or 5 miles.
Understand that. But we can't see it.
No, I know.
Because it's other people's property. The landowner's property, which is it.
I think we need to see.
I do.
So, according to what their action, we're trying to understand that we're going to be completely, property owners will be completely dependent upon the legislative decision and bills and declare whether or not there was or was not opportunity or as far as being able to build, put in whatever it needs for that, that's overseas results. We don't have any way to go with anything, so we depend only upon this. To let us know whether or not our property or somebody's property will or not.
You're dependent on the people that knew about this for 3 or 4 years and never told us about it. Yeah, that's who.
My point is simply that the fact that we don't have any say so at all as to whether or not it's underneath our property.
That's right.
So therefore, I don't see how it could be this far advanced without having any notification as far as the property owner is concerned as to whether or not he can on said property. And perform it.
Well, Pastor, I mean, here's the thing. This police bureau, we have no authority.
I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to explain is this. In 2020, when they passed the bill that gives companies in the domain to go forward with these properties, they took away the local authority and the people ability to either vote for it or vote against it, or because that's just the way it's been. So now that's wrong in my view. I feel like that's very wrong. But here's where we at. We're 4 years. They did that in 2020. Well, we're 5 years down the road. Here we are in our communities in our parish being faced with CO2 injections and CO2 pipelines. The thing is this, unless the legislature stops it and changes it, we're trying to deal with the risk that's present now and will be in the future. And we're trying to work with the companies and the legislature to make sure that we get some very important bills passed to protect us the best way we can. And that's all we can do. And we need people supporting us doing this. And then the people need to get with the legislature if they want to be able to vote up or down on these CO2 injection pipelines. But it's passed our police here. We're trying to do this. That's why we're, doing what we've been doing for over a year now. Just educate. To make sure that we inform people of what's really taking place here. Listen, we're fixing to potentially pump 500 million or even more than that tons of CO2 under our water. Maybe more than that. Who knows? And that's true. And we,
You have several other, you have trimmers, you have opportunities for escape into the environment. But the water system, all that should have been, we're not saying you. We're trying to find out, let's say Mr. Abear has, we'll ask the question, has something on this property, okay? He has mineral, that's his mineral right. And supposedly the report says that, okay, it's fine to go and drill or do something studies under Mr. Abraham. Mr. Abraham doesn't know whether or not he has anything to protect himself, his property, his neighbors or their property, until someone from where is going to say, this is what we found under your property. How long before that happens? And I'm not saying you can answer, I'm just asking to get us to think. That's why the majority of people are kind of not confused with this.
Well, we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions about the lost people, like we're talking about. We have questions about the devaluing of land. Of course, has to be taken up to the legislature. You know, we can lead as a police jury our lives. We've been leading this, but we need people to get it. It's the legislatures that we have to deal with.
How important would it be to get them to come down here?
I think one of the biggest things that there's the seismic permission and then sequestration leasing agreement. And what you've been talked to lately is about permission just to do seismic. If you have or if you're going to sign that paperwork, it in no way gives anyone the right to sequester CO2 on or under the top. So I don't want anyone to think that here because that I just wanted to be stated just really simply, and I feel like that would maybe at least put some one person, if it only reaches one person, about today and what's happening with this.
I don't think that's it. I think that what we're saying is they should have came to the people first. I think the people understand what you're saying. What we're saying is you should have came to the people first, had the meeting about CO2 injection. I talked to these people almost 2 years ago. They disregarded me. They ignored me. They not had the public meetings. Let's be honest with each other, guys. This has been going on for 2 years under the table. I told Denbury in Lafayette, Louisiana, that you went about this the wrong way. I said the right way to do that is come to the people, talk to us, meet with us, and let people know what's going on. I said when the people find out what's happening, they're not going to be happy. I also have told my elected officials, the Honorable Reese and Honorable Shanaford, what's going on, you know. And I told them specifically, I don't like the way this is happening. Whether you believe this is necessary or don't believe it's necessary, I just don't agree with the way it happened. It's the wrong way to do business. You know? So I think Roland has worked hard in the police jury here. I'm proud of them for their hard work. And that's why I kind of shouted out a little bit a while ago, because these very people are the only ones that I've seen that's really working hard for us, guys. But this came through Baton Rouge. This came, the previous governor signed it, the President of the United States. This came from the top down. The police jurors where I live in Vernon Parish are saying, Mike, there's nothing we can do about this. I'm saying, hold on a second. Yes, there's something we can do about this. This is our tax dollars. Okay, this is subsidized with our tax dollars. If this is such a great thing to these companies, pull our tax dollars and let's see where they go. I promise you, they're going to be gone in a blink. They're out of here. Okay, thank you, guys. I'm sorry I get so worked up about this, but we need to repeal eminent domain for carbon capture. That is the problem. To answer the pastor and other people, you need to tell your elected officials, get rid of that. And none of this 75% of the big landowners is running the show. No, make it 75% of the landowners. Okay, that's the problem. They didn't bring that out tonight in the permit, and I'm a little bit disappointed with LDWF for that. Most of this land is owned by a big corporate company, and that's what got us here today. That's our problem. Thank you.
And the reason the companies will not, the reason they're not telling you ahead of time is because they've already fought it in Iowa and South Dakota, other places first. And so they keep it a secret because there's no reason, first of all, to pull perfectly good CO2 out of the air. And there's definitely no reason to compress it and make it dangerous to where it asphyxiates you if it leaks. Disables your vehicles and asphyxiates you. And that's why they don't tell people, because they've not had good luck when people know ahead of time. They fight it. They successfully fought it in South Dakota, I think it is, or Iowa, one or two. And that's why they won't tell you. They want to sneak it in so they can do it without us knowing. It's all by design. Because there's no reason for it, and there's no reason for danger under our people.
And it all goes back to the money on.
That's right. Our legislature works for the biggest donors. They no longer work for us.
This lady's had her hand up.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting. I wanted to say something that I think sometimes we're forgetting, because I hear I'm a landowner myself here from Allen Parish, but I think we forget about our own property, which is our bodies and our health. And back in 1986 in Cameroon, Africa, I did a little research myself. There was a leak of CO2, and it killed over 1,700 people, and about 3,500 animals, livestock. Some of us are livestock owners here, cattle farmers, crawfish farmers, and exactly. I don't think anybody is focused on the health effects of what we are exposed to, what our children are exposed to on top of that. And none of that is being put into those, the risk assessments. I'm not saying, I know y'all saying there's a lot of early stuff, but I think we need to have an expert here and present at these meetings that have the background and the education to inform all of us so we can make informed decisions, because this affects my children, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I think it's unfair not to have that part available to us to make informed decisions, because that too, from what I understand, there were some things that had to be done to make it safe. I don't want to go forward knowing just my property, my physical property is affected, but not only that property, but my health, because that's important too. A dead person can't do anything about land after we're gone. And if the risks are not involved and they to the public and everybody, I think that's going to be an even bigger problem, because if we're dead, we can't fight anything. So that needs to be looked at, and I know you mentioned a meeting at the Civic Center later. We would appreciate having somebody there that has that, either that information or able to give us that information of what effects we'll have, because if the leak starts, it could be something slow, it could be one big effect, and what's being put in ahead of time, money-wise, policies, legislation to protect us on the health side of things. Because at that point, there's a snowball effect after that. The risk that we have schools here, that get water and those effects of what's being exposed. I don't think I haven't heard anybody mention a lot about that, but that's something I'm very interested in.
So I guess just to speak to that, there is not that person here tonight. Correct. Because that's not this seismic survey doesn't have any types of effects of that nature. It's not hazardous to anybody's health. So the OXY folks are here to address your questions after we wrap up the seismic portion of the meeting, just because they knew that people had concerns about carbon sequestration, but there will be separate meetings to address the other aspects of the project. This meeting tonight was just to address the 3D seismic portion of the project.
Well, maybe we need to hold off on this until they tell us the risk assessment and everything else. Why issue a permit, putting the cart before the horses, giving them a permit, and then they need to tell us all this before we ever get started on the permits, right?
So informed decisions can be made, exactly.
Right.
Should be the proposed project, not the project too. Right. Now, I'm hearing that language.
Well, and another thing, while I'm.
Correct, you're correct, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I want to recognize this young lady right here. Been holding your hand up for long before this.
Yes.
Yes. What happens if you don't get permission to go forward with the testing, the seismic testing?
So if they don't get access permission from the landowner, they cannot access your property for purposes of the seismic.
So if you don't get permission to test, you can't give a permit?
So the permit group is going to each individual landowner. I'm sorry, let me stand up so everybody can hear. They're reaching out to each individual landowner whose property they need to access for this survey, and they will discuss that permit with you and go over that permit with you. Those permissions are strictly for the seismic survey, and you have those discussions and choose whether you're going to issue it or not.
So what happens if you don't get the permission you need to do the testing?
So
no permit can be given?
So for each property that they do not obtain permissions, they can't access that property. So they would offset their points to the properties for which they do have permissions.
I think she's saying the level 6 permit.
The class 6 permit doesn't have.
For the wells, they would have to have the seismic permit first.
No. So the seismic doesn't have anything to do with the class 6 permit. The seismic permit is just to image the subsurface. So
they don't have to have to get those wells.
Let me, can I clarify? Because I think what you're so the seismic is just one element of how we look at the subsurface to say.
But you don't have to have it to get the wells.
Most likely, that's a regulated decision, but we have to be happy, and it depends on the quality and the amount of data we have across the whole
But
area.
it's not a requirement to do the classic.
So it is, because what the lady's speaking about there is because we have to track where the CO2 goes underground, one way you can track it is with seismic. So you can see the difference between the CO2 and the surrounding
So
fluid.
you need that permit.
So one of the
to get that
requirements,
other permit?
yeah, so I guess let me put it back. Yeah,
Well, they
I mean,
have to
yeah,
get that
level
permit.
6 permit would give them authorization to go forward. They
But
won't
that's
need
what I was trying to ask is, do they
Am I
need
correct?
the permit
I'm
to
sorry, I
get
didn't
that permit?
If they
Or can
don't,
go
the
around it?
landowners don't give you the permit, the level 6 permit will give y'all authority to go forward. Y'all won't need it.
No, they would still have to, if they're gonna do anything on your property, they would still have to obtain a separate permission from you to do that. It is completely unrelated
So
to
the
the
level
seismic
6
action.
permit won't overrule it.
The class 6 permit, I guess, gives them the right to move forward, but they would still have to come to the landowners to obtain the necessary permissions to place their pipelines where they want to place them, to place their wells where they
I
want to
think
place them.
kind of the simple way I would say it is if a project had zero seismic, is anybody going to issue a class 6 permit? We don't know because it hasn't
So
been
you
tested.
need to have that permit.
That is my strong suspicion, and then you need it for monitoring going forward. But these things haven't been issued, right? So I can't say that.
So if you had,
I'm sorry, could I get everybody to maybe quiet down, because I don't think these ladies can hear the answers to their questions.
so if you had an area off of LA 26 with maybe 50 families out there and they all say no, so they couldn't move forward that level 6 if they refuse.
So for the class 6 permit, the EPA will evaluate the information that they bring to them, and I think you can speak more to this. And they have to feel confident that there is enough good information there that this project is going to be done safely and effectively. And I think what we're trying to convey is you really need the seismic data to know if it's feasible to sequester the carbon based on what the formations are.
I understand that, but if you have this family say, hey, we don't want it, will that stop it?
No.
That's the question I need to
No.
answer.
That's basically what the police juror guy, he stated that until we cannot stop it until we get with our elected officials and they stand up and they stop it. Other than that, the federal government already approved it and they supersedes everything else that we want to do. Unless we stop, like that young man back there said, eminent domain.
And then I'll get to you back there. Yes, sir.
I have two questions. Are you planning to drill a class 5 well as part of your class 6 submission? And number 2, how many landowners are inside the search area? Are any of the landowners the state? And if it is the state, what percentage of that area is the state?
No, so the wildlife management area is not owned by the state. They have
The federal government?
no. It's a privately owned
Private
management
owned.
area for which they have an easement. Is that correct?
A lease.
A lease. So Wildlife and Fisheries has a lease on the wildlife management area, but it is a privately owned
And what
wildlife
percentage
management
of that site that's being studied is that wildlife management?
The majority.
This side over here.
Would you say more than half?
I would say more than half.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many other landowners besides that are in that search area?
I
Roughly.
believe it's around 130.
130.
Do you plan to pursue unitization if this is a go?
Related to the seismic?
Related to the sequestration project.
You're looking about that's different. Yeah.
Okay, I got one. Well, hold on. The land ownership affects the unitization issue, right? It's 75%. So half of it is one owner. Then you only need, so many more to get what you need. So what I'm asking you is, you're going to pursue unitization if you go forward with.
That's not a question.
Well,
I don't even know what unitization is. I apologize.
it's being developed now.
Yeah.
For this.
They passed the bill last year, 466, House Bill 466. What that did, it kind of did unitization. Instead, it was that change where 75% of the landowners would actually have to say if it was allowed to be injected in that plume in that area. So what they did was the 25% still didn't have any say. but they went to units, just like a regular oil would. So what they did was they give 75% of the landowners to say these things. So that's what you're asking.
75% of acreage or 75% of land?
Of the acreage. It's the acreage.
Vast acreage.
Yeah. It's the acreage. How big is the wildlife management there? How many acres roughly?
I don't know exactly, but it's, we don't have.
Hey, I'm not directing any of this at you guys, okay? By the way, I'm a wildlife biologist, okay? So none of this is directed at you. I hope we look out for natural resources, and that's why y'all are here. I understand why y'all are here. But how many acres is the wildlife management there?
I can look it up, but I don't know exactly.
And 60,000? What percent of this is in the wildlife management area? 99,000. Okay, that's all we're trying to find out.
The total project area is 56,000 acres, and the wildlife management area is more than half of that.
So we're saying, we're not only talking about
state grant access for science.
No. This is, so, as Joe mentioned at the beginning, to issue the geophysical permit through Wildlife and Fisheries, there is a requirement to host a public meeting, to post it for 4 weeks prior, which we did in the newspapers, notice that going out. This meeting is to get the public's input on the project and to satisfy the Wildlife and Fisheries requirement. Joe is going to do, like he said, the Natural Heritage Review for protection of resources and for the 3D component of operations, which, like I said, is what this meeting is for. And that the OXY folks are just here to address questions. For the
West Bay is 59,000.
Yeah,
and not owned by
boys, guys. This is also a public wildlife management area. That's the point I'm making in the acreage of it. Not only our land, we pay taxes to the state for that land to be managed for wildlife management. And those things need to be publicized.
And so has the state decided whether or not it's going to grant seismic on the lease? Whatever it is.
We have not issued a permit.
Well, the wildlife just leases.
We lease this property.
Okay, so who has to say on grant?
The landowner has a say on the so we just lease it from
Give them permission.
I'm the other.
Yes. Our landowners already did some meeting for that. The majority of the land already got permission to have
That's why I'm trying to get it.
I got a clue from wildlife officials. I mean, we're going to fight. I mean, we got to get permit. If there's a bird nesting on the pipeline, we cannot. So far, have they done their research to find out if not all the?
We will do a heritage review, which is what I was discussing earlier. So we'll go on our database, see what we have records of in our database.
Like this guy right here, he can't cut his hay if there's a turkey out there nesting. So if you got some, I can't go out there and shoot him out. So he'll put me in jail.
That's actually a federal program.
Okay.
So the same process that your company had to go through on the pipeline, they're going to go through the same thing, and they're going to have to identify empty.
Okay, we cannot mow the grass on the pipeline at certain times. What I'm saying, they say 6 or 7 months. That's going to be right here in the spring, right here in the nesting season. And
So that would be underneath. That would be part of the negotiation for the pipeline. The landowner. No. But the landowner has those rights. The Department of Fisheries does not have that.
Well, we got a lot of people's land.
Now, if there's wetlands involved in that, if there's wetlands involved with the pipeline route, they will have to come through our department and obtain a diversity review again for that.
Lots of wetlands.
They will, yeah, with the
And our heritage people, anything that we have, we'll provide to the company.
Who owns West Bay?
It's 4 different landowners.
What can we want?
I can.
And
It's all timber companies.
you got you guys that use
We have a gentleman with a question in the back. He's had a hand for a while.
So basically, the timber company
Is it safe to say 99% of it is owned by these timber companies?
99%? No, I don't think so. Just mostly the wildlife.
Somebody said.
Yeah, mostly the wildlife management area. Not so much outside of
The
the
majority of the land that's in that highlighted, is that West Bank?
So the eastern half of it,
That's
West Bank.
The whole, most of the eastern half is West Bank. This side over here is West Bank.
Are we part of these West Bank wildlife fisheries to state? Can you say information?
I don't have.
We pay probably a lot. Probably.
Yeah,
I'm sure they all think it's happening for free, huh?
Some of them, that's not.
Yeah, I don't know that.
I'm just saying, I don't think
Some are free.
Yeah, some are.
Some are free.
Okay, I'm asking the question out loud.
We don't know this, but some
I
possibly.
mean, it's not free.
Sir, you talked about eminent domain, and I know there's probably people in here that don't know it. Can you please explain? So
Eminent domain was so we could have a public good where they could come build a road or public building, and those was good for everybody. You know what I'm saying? This came about in recent history, public domain for private companies to make private gain. It went to the courts. Unfortunately, at that point in time, it was rude that, okay, we can do this for the public good where a private company makes money off the public. But I don't think it was subsidized by tax dollars. And I think that's a big difference in this case. If it went to the Supreme Court, I don't think they could win it, y'all, this day and age, because it's subsidized by our tax money. So what eminent domain does, it lets them come do whatever they want. It gives them our land rights, basically, 24/7. And you need to be very careful when you negotiate these contracts. And you need to make sure you have language in there that's legal. Unfortunately, through an attorney, that's going to cost money to protect your land rights any way you can. Because what we're saying with eminent domain is they can come 24/7. You can be out in your yard playing with your grandkids, and they can come through with their truck driving across your property, on a Sunday morning. You can be getting ready for church. That's what eminent domain means, people. They have usurped, taken our land rights away right under our nose. Let me tell you the way I describe it. We're on a slippery slope with banana peels with eminent domain. Because if we allow Baton Rouge to get away with this unchecked, what are they going to come with next? Whether you believe in that we got to take carbon dioxide out of the air, it's 0.04%. It's 420 parts per million. These companies are going to make billions and billions and billions of our tax dollars off of that. I don't think it's necessary, but look, if you believe that, that's fine with me. If you think we got to do it, but we should not have eminent domain for it. We should not be funding it. If these companies still want to protect the world and look out for us, let's see if they do it. Because I can tell you right now, they're not going to do it, people. But that's what eminent domain means. They're using our tax dollars to fund a scam. Thank you.
And there's no special question to the side. We'll let go.
Huh? The people that's doing coming around their lives, they present that your neighbor, they sign. And you go ask them, they ain't signed nothing. They're doing everything they can to get you to sign. And that's wrong.
It's not. The permits they're seeking right now are not, or the
You got photo of this? You got photo of you? Which part? I got photo of you. No way. You hold that in? Oh, can my
Hey, y'all. As
Listen up, man, please.
So the question here was, why is the permit company seeking access to landowner's property before we held this meeting? And I just explained to him that they are, the landowners, you as landowners have the right to grant access to your property or not. And so they have to seek that access as well as their regulatory permit requirements. And so this meeting is part of the regulatory requirement through the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, but all these things go on in conjunction with each other because it is a long process and it does take a long time to obtain all the necessary permissions. Sometimes it takes a long time for them to even locate the landowners because it's hard to find individuals because some people own property, but they might not live here. They may live in Colorado or, so it is a process. And so all of these things are conducted concurrently, and it's all just steps in that process. So it's not because the seismic company was wanting to keep this from you guys. We get started with this process as soon as they kind of work out their design parameters, because early on, they're looking at, can we use vibrators on roads? Is it going to give us the best quality data? Are we going to get a good enough image? Or do we need to go in there and put explosive charges because we won't get the right hold and we won't get the right imaging? So all of this kind of comes along with the process, and we do it as soon as we can with each component of the process, as long as we have enough information.
They had parameters, they knew which area they were targeting. My question is how come that wasn't presented first?
Well,
that's to me, that seems easy. Am I wrong?
Well, they're coming to you guys as soon as possible to give you the information and talk to you about the project and try to obtain access. So they're contacting each of you guys individually because they want to provide that information and because they want to work with you on obtaining access. So in my mind, that's not sneaky. Like, they are contacting each individual person and they have to obtain each individual landowner's permission to get out there, or else they can't access your property. So,
For the seismic graph.
For the seismic.
Specific, because that's just for the
That is all.
seismic graph.
Yeah.
Because you have eminent domain for the, once you do the seismic graph, then you have eminent domain for it.
And the seismic part is, they don't really, they have a good idea of what's here. The seismic part is going to tell them a lot better. So they might not have, once they do the seismic, it's possible. I mean, they might have areas that
do seismic work on. They had to notify y'all of that area.
Well, not until they decided on the seismic purpose.
I just wonder why this meeting wasn't first and then approached the landowner.
I think it was. I think about the time they started contacting you guys, they also reached out to the wildlife fisheries. Kind of the same hospital.
And that is the case. So they started their permitting, we started our regulatory permitting to show that because of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries regulations, we couldn't just post a public meeting right away. We have to post it in the paper for 4 consecutive weeks to notify the public to try to get participation in the meeting. So that was just part of the wildlife and fisheries process. Had we, if there was no posting requirement, we could put it out there, but the public wouldn't have the opportunity to really know and plan for it. So we just had to meet those requirements, which is why this.
And I think that's what he's trying to say. Yeah. They didn't hear nothing about none of this leasing, whatever, or signing a permit, whatever you want to call it. Well, this size thing, because the notice come out the paper, and then they go store. And if most of the land's owned by 4 large land companies, why are other people outside that zone these contacts?
Well, in order to go on your property, they have to contact you.
outside the zone, so I can contact this resident.
They're not.
So you shouldn't be
Yeah.
contacting outside.
And again, even if you're in the project area, if you're between those lines and they don't need to access your property, they're not gonna come to you for a surface access permit for this 3D seismic operation, because they don't need to get on your land.
Well, it's like once the notices went out in the paper, then they started knocking on people's doors.
Well, that's what, for the side part of it, that's when they'll start, getting permission to go on there and do.
But I think in the proper process, they had waited till after this hearing, but then it gets some people to sign that didn't know what they signed. So many people, and I know because my family for years, on all leases, and they always went to my old lands first, then come in and said, this is what we got from your land, we're gonna pay you the same thing.
Well, the truth of it is, we did ask, but we didn't know, I didn't know the procedures exactly with wildlife. I had no idea that the wildlife fisheries had anything to do with it. But we had been talking about before the companies or anybody comes in our parish, in our community, is that we have, that the police bureau be notified, so we can let board tell and let people know what's going on in the communities and what to be expected. But I didn't even have a clue that wildlife fisheries.
And we're just for the side condition. We have nothing to do with any of the Carter Mark, and that is a huge, we're just for the side.
And the other part of that is the new wildlife and fisheries regulations require that we notify the highest ranking officials in the parish about the project and the public meeting. And so that notification was sent out before it was even posted in the paper to your police jury president. And I can't recall the name right now, but I did work with you guys to make sure that notification was provided. So you have known about it before it even became posted the first notice.
What's the state paying for the seismic?
The state is not. No, the company pays for the seismic, but we're required to get a geophysical permit from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And again, as Joe explained, the wildlife and fisheries purpose in issuing these permits is to make sure that we're protecting resources like threatened and endangered species, sensitive species, bird rookeries, different things that the seismic operation could disrupt. So he will review the project area for any of those known locations or any, sensitive habitats that we may need to avoid. And the maps that we have here with these pretty points and these straight lines, that's not what it ends up looking like when they do the operation on the ground. These points move for avoidance of hazards like pipelines and wells and infrastructure. They move to get the proper offset distances from features like we were talking about the migration testing. And so when you have the final project map, these lines are not pretty like this. These lines are going to stay the same because they're planned for roads and trails. So the vibrator routes are planned for those roads and trails. But all these receiver lines, they're going to be offset where there's no permit areas onto adjacent properties. There's going to be offset if we have to avoid red-placated woodpecker happy trees or bird rookeries during the nesting season in accordance with wildlife and fisheries requirements. So the whole purpose of the geophysical permit aspect of it is for protection of the natural resources.
Yeah, I'm just asking, who's paying?
No, yeah, it's funded by the county. It's not a state.
Look, so you guys, is there any more questions for the wildlife?
What about if there's a wetland area in that zone?
So,
totally different than anything else.
So with a lot of projects, when we're drilling off of the roads in wetland areas, we're required to get a permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because it's an excavation and a fill in a wetland area. Everything that they're doing off-road on this project is, it's UTV and foot travel along these receiver lines, and all the vibrator routes are planned along the roads and trails. So there won't be any impacts in these wetland areas that are considered jurisdictional activities because they're not dredging or filling in any wetland areas. So this project is not subject to a Corps of Engineers permit like a lot of other projects that involve drilling might be if you're placing those holes in wetland areas.
Is there any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
So just to clarify, if you don't get permissions, are you able to test just what you do have permissions for?
Correct.
That's correct.
And you
Yes.
issue a permit based on just those properties?
Correct.
The others are left out?
That is correct.
So, okay, is that all for the wildlife fishing? Okay. Is there any questions for Oxy other than we've already talked about tonight?
I'm on Albert Voluntary Retirement Crew, and to be honest with you, if we had CFO league out there, we're not ready for that. What do y'all want to do?
Yeah, that's do you want me to come a bit more in the middle?
Yes, please.
And don't be mean about my accent now.
I'll trade places with you.
Fix so you don't throw me.
Yeah. So that's absolutely something. We can't take a risk.
We can't hear.
I can't hear him. He
We
can't hear
hear.
over here.
Get in the middle.
I
Get to
don't
the
know
mic.
how to get you out, but.
Get to the mic.
Yes.
Hey, look, right there.
Put that one back.
Yeah, pull that.
Oh, you know what? Does that TV roll? That TV rolls? Can I move that out from in front of him? That might be the better option, and then he's not behind the TV screen.
Are y'all done with it?
Yeah, let me get
Just don't bet. Come up here, though. Can y'all hear this?
Yeah.
Hey, so I mean, the question was about how to go into emergency. Okay, that's a part of got our project manager here as well. That's a part of our system. But then even before that stage, we have to work. We're doing so. We talked a little bit about first responder work we're doing at the moment.
Not necessarily my scope, but so we will have staff reach out to the local fire districts to make sure they are prepared what the fire district and see what y'all, if you guys might need new sensors, new trucks, we will work with you and see if we can partner together and maybe help you be able to support those things. There's a great process for that. We want to be able to partner with you and give a benefit as well. Help you be able to.
What we're gonna try for box.
Sorry?
Now we pay for box.
Yeah, that'll be in control as well. I mean, I would hope we have that conversation just directly, but it'll be controlled as well through policy. So through that process, the opportunity of that public policy. But even before that, we're going to get a question to James Roberts. The question earlier about how we get information of the request. But I believe the year are just made the most. In the state of so absolutely, that's the problem.
Is there a plan for emergency?
I mean, not specific because of the stage of the project's at the moment.
Once we get involved, we've all been told here pretty much. We pretty much don't have to say it. We're legislators on this matter, so it's going to go under our review, whether we like it or not. So
I like personally, I like saying it. I say that to roads. I say also the landowner as well. It's the say yes, no, but the
Yes, sir.
I want to know why you're not putting that where people live. All the open land they have in Louisiana, why you putting it where we live?
Or there's a plan in our where's the generator? I have to real straight down. Bathroom.
But would that make more sense to transport them, say, from Baton Rouge to Allen Parish, Louisiana? If it's created in Baton Rouge, it's created in Lake Charles, why not go straight down where it's created and capture it there? Then you don't have to go pipeline.
Put it in the swamp. Put it in the swamp. Why you gotta go out and get it out?
We would love to. No, so what one of the biggest costs of doing this project is building a corporate pipeline. So if we could do it where the software division for actually committed,
right?
We would love to. Like I say, it makes common sense. The reason we can't is because the geology specifications doesn't work. So for the geology, you have to have the right kind of rock, the right kind of characteristics, you have to have seal, and you have to have enough area. There's good quality. You can't do that. You can't say
But Allen Parish so far appears to have the right geology set.
No, what he's saying is the laws in Allen Parish are not here as important as what the laws in Baton Rouge
Well, we're going to be, at least not what, or we're going to be in the next meeting, you know, with the risk assessment go. You know, we're going to have a plan about the first responders, you know, because we're going to be working to get a deal passed to make sure that the first responders will be working with legislation. But is there anybody else got any?
When they get permit for this class six, how long is the permit?
I think between receiving the permit.
No, once you get the permit, how long is the well?
I don't know.
How long can you operate the well?
Indefinitely, we have to in operation for 70 or 80 years. If you maintain it.
So the caverns that you're gonna put this in, what's the capacity of them, at what point do you think you will fill up those caverns?
So they're not just they're not caverns, or injecting into the solid rock.
Okay.
The rock has some porosities and holes in it. Inject it.
So how long do you think you can pump into? If you get this class six well in place?
Yeah, so it depends. So how long you pump it is, how big is tank, basically, and how much CO2 is
Understand tanks, volumes,
so it depends how much CO2 is coming in. We've got, to be honest, we don't have commercial agreements that relate to CO2, which is what I'm saying at the start.
So at what point, what's going to tell you to stop pumping into that zone or whatever?
So, with the lease, you have the right to inject over a certain area. When that CO2 reaches most of that area, the red projects are there. So that's how we know we fill that up.
So pressure or I'm trying to figure out at what point you can say we safely going to stop this. You know, there's a lot of talk about cheap water.
Rusty, there's a start and there's a stop to these projects, okay? And it's not just one thing. Part of it is what Doug's saying. Part of this project is monitoring, and we're required at the end of injection to monitor for dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of years. We can't go anywhere. We got to take care of it, and we got to watch it. And as part of that, what you're asking is, how do you know when you're done? Well, there's a lot of things that go into the permit that the state and the federal government put in there. One of them is pressure. You cannot. Sorry, can you hear me, or do I need to go louder? Okay. Sorry, guys. One of them's pressure. Like you can't, you're not allowed to fracture the rock or get close to the fracture gradient or anything like that. And these tanks, as Doug was saying, it's all porosity. So this isn't something where you're going to fill it up and it's full. It's something where, as part of the permit, you can only inject so much. You get to a certain point and you got to stop.
So I understand that.
Is that
Understand that.
what? Okay.
What I'm getting at is when all this first started, they worried about cheap water.
Yep.
Most of our water wells are below cheap water.
Yes.
Most ones in the advanced rock.
Got the advanced.
1,700 foot deep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this as nice as I can. I think y'all will do everything y'all can to protect this. But if contaminate our drinking water supply, there's not enough money to clean that water. It's not if, it's when. And I'm gonna say this as nice as I can.
Yes.
My wife died last winter from endometrial cancer. You know what that doctor told me? We missed one cell 7 years ago. But we get one leak, one of them little crevices that, we think we can contain it, but it pops open. And gets in our drinking water supply. Y'all all going off somewhere else. Just people in this room is drinking that water. And it's our grandchildren. It's the land that our grandparents fought and paid taxes on and struggled when these big corporations come here and stole it from them because they couldn't pay the taxes. So they swindled them in the land. Hey, let me lease your land to the oil companies so I can get more money for what they got the money for themselves. And my grandparents maybe got another $10 an acre, they took off with $150.
And that's located out here.
That's the thing.
Be here in person, and listen to it.
And I do drinking water across the state, so I know once it's contaminated, there's no cleanup, and guess what? Nobody runs in and say, here's $2 of money to take care of your water. And so submit us a plan that you can clean up. You think will work to clean it up. And if it don't work, it's on you back.
Can you tell us why the oil companies want to do this? What do you get out of it? You're not producing a product.
They're getting a
Except
tax
for
credit.
our money. We're the only ones
The
paying.
federal government is giving a huge tax credit. You haven't heard about it.
Yes.
If they spend
After
20
that,
million,
no,
they may get a tax credit for 5 times that amount.
Right. And
Now,
it's higher
that's not, I'm
wouldn't
pretty
be that
sure
high.
it's high enough.
Right. It wouldn't
That's,
be that high. It wouldn't.
you look, there's some particular IRS publications on that. I think it's in section 48. You can look it up, pertaining especially to the tax credit. So basically what it rounds up being is our government, is our tax money is funding this green initiative. This is carbon is produced here, but we're going to shift it over here.
For what reason though? What do the oil companies get? Why do you want to
Profit.
do this? Why? What reason are you guys giving that this needs to be done? Yeah, that this needs to be done. Why are you promoting this? What are you saying? We need to do this because why?
So, I want to come back to his question, but I don't want to forget about this. So, an oil company is a profit. Right. Like, if I sit here and tell you anything else, you get a believe that it's important. There's 2 reasons. One's that. 2 is if I'm not going to make an argument about whether you believe in climate change and that stuff. That's not, well, everybody believes what they believe. But a lot of these companies are going to go out of business unless they reduce their emissions. And we already see that, obviously, that coal,
So it's a carbon credit. That's what I thought.
yeah, well, so that, a lot of companies who are a bit seriously today, they're going to have difficulty operating in the future, or they're not going to be able to sell their product. Is the way a lot of people think. So those companies are looking at how do they capture the CO2.
Instead of fighting it now that we have a new president, instead of fighting it.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to American politics. I'm just going to tell you about business. So continuation of that business. So some of these people's expectation is that some of these businesses are currently emitting CO2 are not going to be there in the future, or they're going to be too expensive because their products get taxed. And they don't know how that pans out for us. The companies are looking at how do I capture my CO2, so I'm there in the future, probably in the future. What the government is for actually the 55Q tax credit So that's the revenue side.
So my question, I've got one question. What percent can y'all say that it's not going to get in the water? What percent risk that it's going to get in the water? Can you say that it's not going to get in the water? Because go about a week without drinking water, see what happens.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I think about this. So OXY, the company, is the biggest injector of CO2 today.
Not class 6.
No, that's
okay. Y'all say y'all the biggest. Y'all and ExxonMobil both says, oh, we're the biggest injector of CO2, not class 6.
That's what I'm getting to. Let me get that. So absolutely, but that means that we handle and inject a lot more CO2 than anybody else through a different class of well, which is less stringent than class 6. So that's the first thing. How I answer this question is, I'm an engineer. If you're going to ask me the question, is there zero risk? I'm going to say to you, no, there's not zero risk, because that'd be a lie.
Exactly.
He's the first one that's ever admitted to that.
And I guess that's what I'm asking. What percentage do y'all calculate? What percentage of risk is there? Because that's the main concern with everybody. Because I tell you, if I don't have water, I'm out of business. Nobody, you're just going to drive and die. We're not going to have no wildlife. This is a sportsman paradise. It'll be turned into a waste dump, if we don't have water. That's my concern.
I think so. This risk assessment study was commissioned by the parishes. Is going to give you that answer in the end. They're going to tell you that's the purpose of that study. I haven't seen it, but that's the purpose of that study is to assess the risk.
But if OXY wants to pump this in the ground, shouldn't OXY do their own risk assessment so that way they know and then compare the two?
Yeah. So there's a risk assessment requirement in class 6 permit as well. Get from yeah, of course that's not a question. What I'm saying is don't necessarily believe me. Believe what the is your risk assessment public knowledge? It's in the permit.
Hey, Jacob, and I'll get you this video.
The 2 holes there are drilled west level. There's the class line permit, which is a test well. So the purpose of that is to collect data. So there's a bunch of things. Yeah, core samples, electronic logs, pressure tests, a bunch of stuff. That data helps us better characterize the subsurface, and then that goes directly into the
And who's he with? What's he
Getting back to the leakage, into our water supply, who is going to buy my home and my property when that happens?
actual facts that we actually got hybrid geologists in steel. We're developing the plans for that at the moment. But just to set it up for Mr. Josh.
Sorry, I can't.
One thing we're looking at the moment is I hear I kind of talk bluntly. So I've been traveling around to a lot of different areas that have potential projects that we've been looking at. And one thing I hear from others is, it's not a risk, there's not this, there's not that. Okay, there's some truth to that, but the reality is, if I'm a landowner and somebody took a project on my I want to know the question you're asking, what are you actually going to do if this happens? Maybe the risk is tiny, but if it happens, you need to have the actual response. So these guys who are the version response have the actual response. What we're developing right now, remember, we're at a very early stage with this project, so we don't have permits, we don't have the class 6 permits, we don't have a central business model, so there's a long way to go. What we're developing, as I was speaking to Mr. Roman about this, is what is that plan? So if you had, what are we going to monitor? How often are we going to monitor? For example, what would we do if there was a what I want to be able to show is whatever we believe is very small risk. Of course, everybody needs to be prepared for it. So, Josh, can you
you follow up a little bit on.
I'm really sorry. I couldn't hear what you asked, ma'am. What was it now? Someone was talking about.
If you contaminate a property, who's going to buy the property?
Who's going to buy
If
it?
the water's contaminated, if the water's contaminated and her home has no value because there's no good water,
Well,
who's going to pay her for her home?
That would be a problem. I don't think that's something we're planning.
Yeah, it would be a very big
Yeah, I mean, right.
Yeah, this sounds just.
So there's so I can just tell you, I guess, you know, I talked to some of the water operators a couple months ago about this. Maybe the best way to give you my perspective is, you know, I've been working on these types of projects for a long time. I did my graduate work at Lafayette on the Chico Aquifer. You know, worked on a lot of abandoned wells and all kinds of sorts of things, and have been fortunate to have a lot of experience working on these issues. And you know, when it comes to kind of CO2, like getting into the water, right? You know, there's not, you know, we're planning on injecting as pure CO2 as we can get, right? We need to be able to compress it. We don't want to have any impurities or anything else in there. So I'm going to put the CO2 in the ground. You can kind of think of it like a reverse water well. These are not huge, giant industrial wells going at thousands.
So it's something you can drink. You
The-
can drink what you're going to be.
The CO2? No, it's being stored. It's being stored in an oil and gas reservoir, basically, right? Like there's no oil and gas there, but it's an oil and gas reservoir.
CO2 leaks into the water.
What happens to the water?
Yeah.
So it's similar to a soda. So CO2 is going to raise the dissolved CO2. It's going to raise the dissolved CO2 content.
You know, hey, babe.
Well, there's a lot of questions. Yes, ma'am.
You know what this sounds like?
Do what?
This sounds exactly like what happened with Aaron Rossington. They said, "Oh, come on, y'all, the water's good. It's good for you." That's what's
No,
going to happen to us. You're telling us that this is going to be all just fine. We are going to just fine. More important than that, my grandbabies are going to be fine. And I don't believe you. And another thing, I don't believe that you're old enough to know what's going on.
I guarantee you, if the legislators had this well that y'all are trying to put here in Allen Parish in their backyard, it wouldn't be done. The same ones they voted it in, if this was being put around their property, I guarantee you it wouldn't be done.
All right, so here we go. So if you have CO2 that is mixed with water, you get chloronic acid.
Yes, that's right.
That changes the pH.
That's right. The pH will go down.
Okay, so that makes the water more acidic. It's going to kill or change marine life. It's going to make it more acidic. You're going to drink. So yes, you can drink a can of soda, but how many can of sodas can you drink without having water?
So I don't think the analogy is, you know, that you can, you know, drink pure CO2. The water can only hold so much dissolved CO2 in there.
Sure.
So, you know, the pH would go down a couple of units, right? And then
it's a couple of units.
Do it.
4 or 5.
It's like 4. If it was the maximum amount would be like 4.5, right? You'd be looking somewhere around there, 4.5 to 5.5. You know, coffee kind of level, if that makes sense. It would be kind of acidic like that. And so, I mean, one of the interesting things, you know, about it is, you know, they're old oil and gas reservoirs, right, that have a lot of porosity, and they're very, very good storage units, you know. And so as far as like leakage, when you're talking about going 7,000 feet, you know, over a mile vertically upwards, that's where the risk assessment comes in that we've done, and there's some independent risk assessments, and then there's some by the state also that looks at this to say what is the likelihood, and we have those rolling I mean, y'all have yours coming out Wednesday, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be this Wednesday. We're supposed to get it,
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna be going over. We've done looked at 70% of it. We're looking at the other 30%, and then we're gonna be getting with the companies with their risk assessment and with the our team that we are geologists assigned. We're gonna be getting with Exxon and with Austin, and be talking about this risk. And then we're gonna hold a public hearing and have both companies present, have the risk assessment firm there that did the study, like we was talking about, and also the impact for McNeese, the impact study of being here for McNeese. And we're gonna have, we're gonna go over this risk assessment, and we're gonna ask questions to the Oxy, Exxon, to the risk assessment firm. And we want the public to hear what this risk assessment is saying and how these companies and how the geologists are responding to the answers that's being asked. And then at that point in time, I know this meeting went long because let me tell you what, people are concerned. People didn't know this is a result of this is the first time people's actually got a chance. So, Doug, you didn't have to come with the team. I appreciate it because it's important that we give the people an opportunity to ask serious questions. And there's many more, but we're working toward that probably in March. Now, we're very concerned about this. Don't think we're not. Listen, we put in a lot of effort and time, this police jury and the other three police juries and the town of Kent, the mayor and them. We have spent a lot of time to do what we can to make sure that if this does come, and the chances is that it's a pretty good chance unless legislative change, we've got to deal with the risk that's coming through our community. That's what we're doing. So at the next meeting, it'll probably be in March or sometime, right? Jacob Duncan?
No, I'm ready. No, I think once we advertise the public hearing and everything, I think March is good.
March. Then we're going to be able to do this meeting where everybody can hear the geologists that we are and the scientists that we are, hear from the companies in front of everybody where we can go over this risk assessment and try to make sure that we don't miss anything and we're fully informed. And then we need to make sure that the public gets behind the and get, and works with our legislature and force some very important bills and work with these companies that's here. Listen, people get mad at companies and all that. Every company's trying to make money, right? There's nobody that ain't trying to make money. But if people really want to be mad, then they got to be mad at Democrats and Republicans in Washington and in the state of Louisiana, like every other state that this is coming to. So what I'm getting at is this. This is a result of people being forced to do something they don't to meet my okay. But I promise you this, we're doing our due diligence. Doug and him, he's the first company official that looked me in my eyes and told me this. It's risk road, but we believe we can minimize it. Because I get so freaking tired of hearing companies say it's minimum risk. No, it ain't. It's not minimum risk, it's risk. Now that whenever you commit that it is risk, now we can work together to try to minimize it. So he's the first guy that's ever, in a meeting told us that. And I appreciate that because now that when you admit to it, now we can work on it together to how to minimize it. It's not these guys' fault that it's here. It's just the company. That's their job. We being forced from Baton Rouge and Washington. So I'll ask you this: when we go to get these bills off this risk assessment soon, please get behind us. Get behind us to talk to our legislatures. Get behind the police juries that's pushing these bills, where we can get some very important bills back. Is there anything? I got three questions.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that CO2
Is a good artificial lift.
Is a good artificial lift.
For all of that.
I don't have experience with CO2 for artificial lift. That's not what I've used.
Labs and gas. So we use it in our soil recovery.
So for what's on, so we push it to CO2.
Not a hydrocarbon. For what? Not the same.
Which one are we going to?
That's another problem.
No.
So when you push this CO2 in there, you push this exploded oil, are y'all gonna allow companies to drill that oil and push these foods in there?
It's not pushing. There's no oil there.
Who has the final approval to mark that site safe? Is that company or is that environmental?
It's the Louisiana Department of Energy and Natural Resources. So through the Class 6 fund.
So say your surveys come back, you think you're safe, they will check the box and say that this should not be. Should be safe.
To their standard, yeah. And there's, before they issue that, there's a public hearing process. Anybody to show up and make their comments.
I just want to say that that's something that Roland is pushing. He's pushing for monitoring, for us to be involved. For us, and I'll let him go with that. We'll see if that's going to happen.
Well, the thing is when, there's just 4 or 5 things. First of all, if we can't vote on it, I don't know where that's going to end up at. But if we can't vote on it and these things is coming, there's just 4 or 5 things that makes, first of all, we make sure that we get the right material in the pipeline. Run through our communities with monitors on and with alert systems and notifications out to the public if we have a thing. Because we do know this on our risk assessment that we looked at the 70%. We know between the shut-in valves, between the 2 automatic shut-in valves, if you have a breach between that CO2 plume could cover 700 and something acres. So what we want to make sure of, Mississippi's proved that is a warning sign to people. It's a warning sign. Mississippi was a warning sign. So we have to make sure that we accommodate and make sure it's as safe as possible with these alerts and notifications, wind directions for people to know, where we can have a bill that we have community drills that the first responders have the right equipment, how to tackle CO2, how to do the right way, to do this CO2. We've never been faced with this before. So, and also, I know this is the part that maybe the companies don't like, but I think this needs to be said. We need a criminal charge on anybody that knows there's a leak in the well and don't shut it down immediately and notify the local governments in the state. I think it's just because Illinois has done that to good companies. Listen, OXY and Exxon, some of the biggest companies around. But if this other company that was in Illinois is not a high standard company that what I can understand is these companies. But it don't matter. If it's our water, it's our community. And we need to protect that at all costs if this is going to be forced on us. And also we want our own parish monitors that monitor the pressures, the water testing, and all this, but where the integrity of these things will be done. Most of this stuff I talked to Doug about his thing, talking to some of the Exxon people. I don't think that we'll have much pushback from them. But we need to get the legislature to get these bills passed. We need y'all to help us do that. Listen, the parishes, this is a fact. Since 2020, the parishes hardly got any bills passed on behalf of the parishes. Spending, because this is the next big thing. But we need this session about the parishes, about the people. That's what we do. And like I said before, Doug and them didn't have to be here tonight. I appreciate that. Now they had to be here, but they were going to have to be in some meetings later on with us. But I appreciate them coming out at least. These are the first time the people has ever been given a chance to even have their voice heard. So, I appreciate everyone that's come out.
I have one question. You said for us to get behind the bill, and you stated that you are against it, right?
Yes, sir.
All our police juries are against it?
I'm against it, 100%.
I'm asking if
All of them, I'm with y'all.
all of them.
From what I see,
Not all of them.
y'all against it, don't want it. And that's where I started. I took office in last January, and I had to do my own research to catch up on this because it should have been done 2 years ago. You know, and you sit here and say, this man said, yeah, there's risk involved. You should say it. You got a heart, you're a Christian man, you ought to say it. You know, and I think the people here don't want it. Here, our water's our water, that's all we got. Y'all need to push that stuff to go to Mexico the way I look at it like this. I don't want it all here.
You have it, right? I mean, that's part of this process, right? It's a permanent process.
You know, go put it in your backyard, wherever you from. You know, I don't know.
Is our representatives going to be here for this next meeting?
I mean, I can't answer that.
What do you mean? You can tell me how
I can he's got an office in Oakdale, calling us.
No, you tell me.
Yes, sir.
Next meeting. Whoever's behind this, tell them to be here.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
Y'all need to call your own senators and congressmen to
Right.
Are you still against violence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so would you recommend like being a part of that? Isn't it a group of people?
It's absolutely imperative that people join CO2 Alliance by going to Louisiana CO2Alliance.org. What that is a membership, a grassroots membership given, because we're going to be our alliance even with our legislatures in this next session on these bills that we've been talking about. It matters. I mean, I hate to say it, but when you get to that group, the numbers are high. You know, so yes, sir. So June J, right? You get down to your stop. At some point, you take your all out there and send it somewhere else in the pipeline. I don't want you to pump it back out. It's never gonna come back out.
I'm never going to say to you now. This stuff is really a question of the problem.
Right. The force on it is gonna push back the chalk or whatever's on you, don't need to push back.
Yeah, it just stays in that zone, just trapped in the water with like a impermeable layer above. That's what the job.
Right. Okay.
So again, I'm not going to say that.
Well,
I said you know,
but I want to go, if you got check out, see what out. I'm gonna, you're gonna have a couple more questions. And we'll call it a night, right?
So from the end of the time that you're done on the CO2 round, how long is it going to take?
So we have to monitor it for years until the state decides the CO2 stops. So when you stop pumping, oxygen pressure normalizes it. Stops. It doesn't stop immediately. You have to monitor it. And then that's when you stop. So the state says
One more question. I don't know who directed you can answer. It's something that's on my mind because it's recent. I'm sure in Illinois they had public hearings. I'm sure they did monitoring. I'm sure they did preliminary work. What happened in Illinois? Do any of y'all know that could happen here? Could it happen here?
So we can speak to it a little bit. We know what's publicly available, so we've looked at that. We cannot. So our company, we're not in the company, we're not in the regulators, we can speak to it. So different wellbore design with these sliding sleeves that allow them to inject into different, they can slide the sleeve to go into different zones. And it seems, from what we've read and what they've released, that they had some corrosion, that system failed, and they allowed CO2 to go somewhere that it shouldn't. There's two things to that. First thing, we don't use that sliding sleeve system in our design. We inject in a zone, that's it, one well, that zone. And then we might block it and perforate higher up, so we have one, that's the first. Second thing is, one of the things that we've seen in the public about the use of 13 steel with 13 grams, not being super resistant to CO2 emissions. We've never had that with our design. In fact, we've got a pretty sophisticated set of engineers, material engineers in the company, and then we're working with them on what's the right material. And then we actually discounted that for our design about 20 years ago. So we don't have that with something called super-duplex 2507 grow, which is much more corrosion resistant material.
Better than 13. Yeah. Because 13 ain't all work.
So, I mean, we do a lot of materials testing, and also that's part.
Now, with you saying,
25.
with you saying y'all being one of the larger companies of injecting, and y'all done this CO2 before, correct?
We inject CO2.
Yeah, y'all done this before. So then we're safe to say, right, but they've done it, you said with the class 5, right?
So we inject, class 2.
Okay, class 2. Well, with that, and looking at the risk assessments, like you said, and we mentioned before, from the health aspect and all of this other stuff with leaks, do you have any research that you could give to the public that we can go and look up to see what these prior risk assessments, kind of like what y'all said with Mississippi and I think Illinois, things like that we can go and look to see what was public knowledge and publicly, released that you recall that you can tell us about?
You can go to LouisianaCO2Alliance.org, and there's a lot of information. We've been putting a lot of information out, and Louisiana CO2 Alliance Facebook page. We've been putting a lot of information about those kind of things. Mississippi,
examples.
It's so much stuff. So we have been, and then you can go yourself, because once you start going there, you'll be able to see websites to go to, do your own research and study. But we try to provide our gentlemen information on what we believe is the risk and what we're trying to do.
The main thing is to know, so when we do have this next meeting, what resolutions, like you said, if we can't do anything about the fact that it's already started, and according to what they told us, the time frame is possibly 3 years from the permit, we would have some time to put some form of legislation in, but have some resolutions to speak to the risk involvement. So that's what I'm looking at. If we aren't able to be effective and stop it, we need to also be able to prepare to say, okay, these are the mitigated risks that we might be coming up with. What can we put in these bills to help protect our families, our communities, our property, and so on and so forth? Because I look at the long range effects, because just like that gentleman was talking about cancer, that's not a that's a long-standing health issue. And if I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at half of the patients that I deal with in this community as elderly, they don't always have the insurance, the money, but they're affected by those things. So who is assuming that risk and that financial burden that we may be exposed to? So that's those type of questions I like to have something that I can look at to say, okay, this is the issue and how we can address it.
Now, I didn't say my wife died from cancer.
No, sir, I get that. But I'm looking at it from the medical side.
To me that 7 years ago they missed one little cell and it broke. I want to make that clear.
Okay. I think Yes, I've been, Doug, I appreciate y'all coming. And I appreciate the public to take some time to come. Other than that, let's say a prayer. We have a pastor. First brother, he left.
Can't go lunch for that next one.
Their Heavenly Father, thank you for their thank God for providing wisdom and knowledge, oh God. We pray, God, that you give us wisdom and that you help us, oh God, to come up with the best plans, bless deals, where we can work together with industry and legislatures and make sure that we protect our people. If this cannot be, if it's not changed as it is right now, it's coming, it's headed our way. If it can't be changed, God, help us to make sure that we do everything right. But if it be your will, let it go another way, where we don't even have to face it. But if it is, let us be wise. Let us work together. And we ask you to watch over our children and our communities. I thank you, God, bless Doug and them on their way back. And God, everyone back to their home today. We give you honor and praise.
Amen. If they would have